Born in 1809, he lived only 40 years. In his short time, he battled depression, alcoholic, drug addiction, sickness, and the ultimately loss of his parents and wife. But despite of his short and tragic life, he produced remarkable literary legacy. Edgar Allan Poe was an American writer, poet, critic, and the editor best known for evocative short stories and poems that captured the imagination and interest of readers around the world. His imaginative storytelling and tales of mystery and horror gave birth to the modern detective story. Many of Poe's works, including The Telltale Heart and The Fall of the House of Usher, became literary classics. Some aspects of Poe's life, like his literature, is shrouded in mystery, and the lines between fact and fiction have been blurred substantially since his death. Now you're going to see a brief short film my team and I made for literature class. I hope you like it.
For the most wild yet most homely narrative which I am about to pen, I neither expect nor solid belief, but in need will I be to expect it in a case where my very sense reject their own evidence. Yet mad I am not, and very sorely do I not dream, but tomorrow I die, and today I will unburden my soul. My immediate purpose is to place before the world, plain, succinctly, and without comment, a series of mere household events. In their consequence, these evidences have terrified, have tortured, have destroyed me, yet I will not attempt to expound them. To me they have present little but horror. To many they will seem less terrible than Baroque's. Hereafter perhaps some intellects might be found which will reduce my phantoms to the commonplace, some intellect more calm, more logical, and far less excitable than my own, which will perceive in the circumstance I detail with awe nothing more than an ordinary succession of very natural causes and effects. I married early, and was happy to find in my wife a disposition not uncongenial with my own. Observing my partiality for domestic pets, she lost no opportunity of procuring thoughts of the most agreeable kind. We had birds, goldfish, a fine dog, rabbits, a small monkey, and a cat. This latter was a remarkably large and beautiful animal, entirely black and sagacious to an astonishing degree. In speaking of his intelligence, my wife, who at heart was not a little tinctured with suspicion, made frequent allusion to the ancient popular notion, which regarded all black cats as witches in disguise. Not that she was ever serious upon this point, and I mention the matter at all for no better reason that it happens just now to be remembered. Pluto, this was the cat's name, was my favorite pet and playmate. I alone fed him, and he attended me wherever I went about the house. Our friendship lasted in this manner for several years, during which my general temperament and character, through the instrumentality of the fiend temperance, had, I blush to confess it, experienced a radical alteration for the worse. I grew day by day more moody, more irritable, more regardless of the feeling of others. I suffered myself to use intemperate language to my wife. At length, I even offered her personal violence. My pets, of course, were made to feel the change in my disposition. I not only neglected but ill-used them. For Pluto, however, I still retained sufficient regard to restrain me from maltreating him, as I made no scruple of maltreating the rabbits, the monkey, or even the dog, when by accident or through affection they came in my way, but my disease crept upon me. For what disease is like alcohol? And at length even Pluto, who was now becoming old, and consequently somewhat peevish, Even Pluto began to experience the effects of my ill temper. One night, returning home, much intoxicated from one of my haunts about town, I fancied that the cat avoided my presence. I seized him, when in his fright and my able violence he flung a sling wound upon my hand with his teeth. The fury of a demon instantly possessed me. I knew myself no longer. My original soul seemed at once to take its flight from my body, and a more than feels fine fish malevolence, Jean nurtured, thrilled every fibre of my frame. I took from my waistcoat pocket a penknife, opened it, grasped the door beast by the throat, and deliberately cut one of its eyes from the socket. I blushed, I burned, I shuddered while I penned the damnable atrocity.
I experienced a sentiment half of horror, half of remorse, for the crime of which I had been guilty. But it was at best a feeble and equivocal feeling, and the soul remained untouched. One morning, in cold blood, I slipped a noose about its neck and hung it to the limb of a tree. Hung it with the tears screaming from my eyes and with the bitter remorse at my heart. Hung it because I knew it had loved me and because it felt given me no reason of offense. Hung it because I knew that in so doing I was committing a sin. For months, I could not rid myself of the phantoms of my cat, and during this period there came back into spirit half sentiment that seemed was not remorse. I went so far as to reject the loss of the animal, and look about me among the wild haunts which I know habitually frequent for another bird of the same species, and one of somewhat similar appearance with a wish to supply its place. One night,
As I sat half stupefied in a den of mortal infamy, my attention was suddenly drawn to some black object. I had been looking steadily at the top of his hogshead for some minutes, and what now caused me surprise was the fact that I had no sooner perceived the object thereupon. I approached it, and touched it with my hand. It was a black cat, a very large one, fully as large as Pluto, and closely resembling him in every respect but one. Pluto had not a white hair upon any portion of his body, but this cat had a large, although indefinite, splotch of white covering nearly the whole region of the breast. I continued my caresses, and when I prepared to go home the animal evinced me a disposition to accompany me. I permitted to do it, so occasionally stopping and pacing, and it was proceed. When it reached the house, it domesticated itself at once, and became immediately a great favorite with my wife. With my aversion to this cat, however, its partiality for myself seemed to increase. It followed me my footsteps with a pertinacity which it would be difficult to make the reader comprehend. Whenever I saw it would crouch beneath my chair or spring upon my knees, covering me with its loathsome caresses. At such times, although I longed to destroy it with a blow, I was yet withheld from so doing, partially by a memory of my former crime, but chiefly, let me confess it at once, by absolute dread of the beast. Evil thoughts became my sole intimidates. The darkness and most evil of thoughts, the moodiness of my usual temper increased to hatred all of things and all of mankind, while from the sudden, frequent, and unforgettable outburst of a fury to which I now bitterly abandoned myself, my uncomplaining wife, alas, was the most usual and the most patient of sufferers. One day she accompanied me upon some household errand into the cellar of the old building which our poverty compelled us to inhabit. The cat followed me down the stepstairs and nearly throwing me headlong, exasperated me to madness. Of flinging an axe and forgetting in my ground the childish dread which had hitherto stayed my hand, I aimed a blow at the animal which of course would have proved instantly fatal had it descended as a wish, but this blow was arrested by the hand of my wife. goaded by the interference into a range more than demoniacal, I withdrew my arm from her grasp and buried the eggs in her brain. She fell dead upon the spot with a groan.
I carefully deposited the body against one of the inner walls of the house, having procured mortar, sand, and hair with every possible precaution. I prepared a plaster which could not be distinguished from the old, and with this I very carefully went over the new brickwork. When I had finished, I felt satisfied that was all right. The wall did not present slightest appearance of having been disturbed. The rubbish on the floor was picked up with the minutest care. Upon the fourth day of the assassination, a police came very unexpectedly into the house and proceeded again to make rigorous investigation of the premise. Secure, however, in the inscrutability of the place concealment, I feel no embarrassment whatever. My heart beat calmly as one of the who slumbers in innocence. No sooner had the revelation of my plot sunk into silence than I answered by a voice from within the tomb, by a cry at first moving and broke like a little sobbing of a child, then quickly swelling in one long, loud, and continuous scream, utterly anomalous and inhuman. In the next, the arms of the police officers were tolling at the wall. It fell deployedly. The corpse, already greatly decayed and clothed with the gore, stood erect before the eyes of spectators. Upon its head, with great extended mouth and celerity eye of fire, sat the hideous face whose craft had seduced me into murder, and whose informing voice had consigned me to the hangman. I have walled the monster up within the tomb.
Qué buena carta, amigos.